The galaxy had been at war for decades. Planets burned, star systems fell, and countless lives were lost as the alien invaders known as the Wraith pushed deeper into the Galactic Federation's territory. The Federation had sent calls for help to every member planet. Most responded with fleets, armies, or weapons. But Earth? Earth had remained silent. At first, many believed Earth simply lacked the technology to fight a galactic war. It was, after all, one of the youngest civilizations in the Federation. Others whispered rumors that Earth had been destroyed or had abandoned the galaxy altogether. No one could confirm anything. Earth's silence had been absolute. By the time the war reached its final stages, the Federation was on the brink of collapse. The Wraith were preparing their final assault on Axion Prime, the heart of the Federation. If Axion Prime fell, the war would be over and so would the galaxy's freedom. The Federation's remaining fleets gathered for one last stand, but morale was low. They knew they couldn't win. As the battle began, chaos erupted. The Wraith's massive warships dwarfed anything the Federation could muster. Federation admirals shouted orders, trying to hold their lines together, but the Wraith were too powerful. One by one, the Federation ships began to fall. It was a slaughter. And then, something unexpected happened. From the darkness of space, a fleet of ships emerged. At first, they were just small blips on the Federation's scanners, but as they approached, they grew clearer. The ships were sleek and black, their surfaces shimmering like liquid metal. They bore no recognizable insignia, but their trajectory was unmistakable. They were headed straight for the Wraith. "Who are they?" one of the Federation commanders asked, his voice filled with confusion. Before anyone could answer, a signal came through. It was Earth. "This is Captain Darius of the Terran Fleet," the voice announced. "We're late, but we're here." The Federation officers couldn't believe their ears. Earth? After all these years of silence? Some scoffed. Earth couldn't possibly make a difference now, not against an enemy like the Wraith. But their doubts didn't last long. The Terran ships didn't wait for orders. They charged straight into the heart of the Wraith fleet with surgical precision. At first, the Wraith didn't take the newcomers seriously. They turned their massive cannons toward Earth's ships, expecting an easy victory. But what happened next shocked everyone. The Terran ships moved faster than anything the Federation had ever seen. Their engines left trails of glowing energy as they darted between enemy fire, dodging blasts with impossible accuracy. And then they struck back. Earth's weapons were unlike anything in the galaxy. Beams of light so bright they seemed to tear through space itself ripped through the Wraith warships, cutting them in half. Entire sections of the Wraith fleet disintegrated in moments. The Federation's officers watched in stunned silence as the Terran fleet dismantled the enemy. "What kind of technology is that?" someone whispered. No one had an answer. But Earth's surprises weren't over. As the Wraith tried to regroup, a new wave of Terran ships emerged. These were larger, more ominous. Their surfaces pulsed with an eerie blue glow. Before anyone could ask what they were, the ships began to deploy small drones, thousands of them. The drones swarmed the Wraith fleet like a plague. They latched onto enemy ships, drilling into their hulls and disabling them from the inside. The Wraith tried to fight back, but the drones adapted to every countermeasure. Within minutes, half the Wraith fleet was either destroyed or rendered useless. The Federation forces couldn't believe what they were seeing. The Wraith, who had seemed unstoppable just hours ago, were now in full retreat. The battle that had seemed hopeless was turning into a decisive victory, thanks to Earth. But not everyone was celebrating. Federation Admiral Rin, one of the few officers who had remained skeptical of Earth, watched the battle with a growing sense of unease. "How did they build all this?" he muttered. "And why didn't they come sooner?" As the Wraith fled, Earth's fleet regrouped. A signal came through to the Federation flagship. It was Captain Darius again. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "The Wraith threat has been neutralized," he said. "But this galaxy needs stronger leadership if it's going to survive." The Federation officers exchanged uneasy glances. What did he mean by that? Before anyone could respond, Earth's ships began to surround the Federation fleet. Their weapons were powered up, their intentions clear. Earth isn't here to take orders, Darius continued. From now on, the Terran fleet will ensure the galaxy's safety our way. The Federation officers realized too late that Earth hadn't just shown up to save the day. They had shown up to take control. The battle was over, but the war for the galaxy's future was just beginning. And Earth? Earth had the upper hand. The galaxy had never faced an enemy like the Vorn. Towering machines with razor-sharp precision, the Vorn had swept across countless star systems, leaving only destruction in their wake. The Galactic Federation, the alliance of planets sworn to protect the galaxy, had tried every strategy, every weapon, but nothing worked. The Vorn were too strong, too relentless. As the Federation struggled to survive, they sent desperate messages to all their member planets, pleading for reinforcements. Most responded, sending ships and soldiers. But Earth remained silent. For years, Earth had been a quiet member of the Federation, often ignored by the larger, more advanced planets. It was a young civilization, still learning its way in the galaxy. When Earth failed to respond to the Federation's calls, whispers began to spread. "They're cowards," some said. Others claimed Earth had been destroyed in secret. Either way, Earth's silence left the Federation feeling abandoned. The war reached its breaking point at the Battle of Helios Prime. The Vorn had cornered the Federation's remaining fleets at the edge of the galaxy, surrounding them with massive warships. Federation Admiral Talos stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the enemy fleet move closer. His officers looked to him for guidance, but he had no plan left. The Federation was out of time. Suddenly, an alarm rang out. "Unidentified ships entering the system," a communications officer shouted. Talos frowned. Who would be crazy enough to come here now? The answer came seconds later. A voice crackled through the comm system. "This is Commander Elena Rain of the Terran fleet. We're here to help." The bridge fell silent. For a moment, no one moved. "Earth?" Talos finally said, his voice a mix of disbelief and anger. "They show up now?" The Federation officers muttered among themselves. What could Earth possibly bring to the fight? They had no fleets, no advanced weapons. Some even laughed. But then the Terran ships came into view, and the laughter stopped. The Earth fleet was unlike anything the Federation had seen before. Sleek black ships glided into the system, their surfaces glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. There weren't many of them, just 24 at most, but they exuded a strange, quiet power. Before Talos could issue a command, the Terran ships accelerated, heading straight for the Vorn. "What are they doing?" one of the officers asked. "That's suicide." The Vorn quickly turned their weapons toward the new arrivals. Massive plasma cannons fired, lighting up the darkness of space. But something incredible happened. The Terran ships dodged the blasts with impossible precision, weaving through enemy fire as if they knew where the shots would land before they were fired. "What kind of technology is this?" Talos whispered, leaning forward in disbelief. And then the Terran ships struck back. Instead of firing conventional weapons, the Terran fleet unleashed swarms of small drones. At first, they looked harmless, tiny metallic spheres darting toward the Vorn ships. But when they reached their targets, the drones latched onto the hulls and began drilling inside. Seconds later, explosions rocked the Vorn fleet. Ship after ship went dark, their massive forms drifting lifelessly in space. The Federation officers watched in stunned silence as the Terran drones tore through the Vorn like a plague. No matter how hard the enemy tried to fight back, the drones adapted, finding new ways to penetrate their defenses. "Admiral," one officer said, his voice trembling, "they're winning." Talos shook his head, unable to process what he was seeing. How? How did Earth build this? The Vorn tried to regroup, pulling their ships back, but the Terran fleet didn't let up. More drones were deployed, and the battlefield became a graveyard of enemy warships. In less than an hour, the once unstoppable Vorn fleet was annihilated. As the dust settled, the Federation officers erupted in cheers. They had been saved. But Admiral Talos wasn't celebrating. His eyes were fixed on the Terran fleet, which now hovered motionless in the distance. Why now? He muttered to himself. Why did they wait so long? His question was answered moments later when Commander Rain's voice returned to the comms. The Vorn threat has been neutralized, she said. Her tone was calm, almost too calm. The galaxy is safe. For now. Telos frowned. For now? He repeated. You don't understand, Admiral, Rain continued. We didn't come here just to save you. We came to take control. Telos froze. What are you talking about? The Terran ships began to move again, this time toward the Federation fleet. Their weapons powered up, glowing with that same eerie blue light. For too long, the Federation has failed to protect its people, Rain said. Earth won't make that mistake. From this day forward, the Terran fleet will ensure peace. But under our rules. The bridge erupted into chaos as officers shouted, trying to make sense of what was happening. They're turning on us. One of them yelled. Talos stared at the approaching Terran ships, his heart sinking. They hadn't just shown up with a secret weapon. They had shown up with a plan. And now, the galaxy belonged to Earth. For years, Earth had been a mystery. Once a promising young member of the Galactic Federation, the planet had vanished without a trace. No signals, no ships, no answers. The last communication from Earth came decades ago, a simple message, we need time. Then silence. The galaxy had moved on. Earth was just a forgotten footnote in history, a planet many assumed had been destroyed or abandoned. With a war raging against the alien invaders known as the Exinox, there was little time to worry about the fate of a quiet, insignificant planet. The Exinox were ruthless, consuming everything in their path. Planet after planet fell, their advanced fleets overpowering the Federation at every turn. Now, the war was reaching its darkest hour. The Federation's forces were scattered, its allies losing hope. The Exinox were preparing for their final assault on Epsilon Prime, the seat of the Federation's power. Admiral Cassian, commander of the last remaining Federation fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship. His ships were battered and outnumbered. He stared out into the void, watching the enemy fleet slowly advance. This was it. The end of the Federation, the end of freedom in the galaxy. Suddenly, an alarm blared. Admiral, a communications officer called out, "We're detecting a fleet entering the system." Cassian turned sharply. Reinforcements? Who sent them? The officer hesitated. I'm not sure, sir. They don't match any Federation codes. Cassian frowned. Put it on screen. The main display lit up, showing dozens of sleek, dark ships emerging from hyperspace. Their hulls shimmered with a strange metallic glow, reflecting the light of distant stars. They looked alien, yet familiar. The bridge went silent as the officers stared at the screen. Finally, one of them whispered, "Is that Earth?" Cassian's eyes narrowed. Earth? Impossible. Earth was gone, forgotten. And yet, there they were. A message came through the comms. The voice was calm and clear. This is Captain Duran of the Terran fleet, requesting permission to join the fight. The officers exchanged stunned glances. Cassian's mind raced. Where had they been all this time? How had they built such ships? But there was no time for questions. Permission granted, he said, his voice steady. Let's see what you can do. The Terran fleet wasted no time. Their ships moved with an eerie precision, advancing toward the Exinox fleet. At first, the Exinox didn't seem to notice them. But when the first Terran ship fired, everything changed. A single shot from a Terran warship hit one of the Exinox destroyers. It didn't just damage the ship, it vaporized it. The entire enemy vessel disintegrated in a flash of light, leaving nothing but empty space. What kind of weapon is that? One of Cassian's officers whispered. The Exinox quickly adjusted, turning their fire on the Terran fleet. Massive plasma cannons lit up the battlefield, but the Terran ships moved too fast. They dodged every shot with impossible accuracy, their shimmering hulls absorbing what little damage came their way. Then the Terran fleet deployed something new. Small, spherical drones swarmed out from their ships, moving like a living organism. The drones latched onto the Exinox ships, cutting through their defenses with surgical precision. One by one, the Exinox ships exploded, their mighty fleet falling apart. Cassian watched in awe as the battle turned in their favor. The Exinox, once thought unstoppable, were retreating. It was a miracle. Or was it? As the last Exinox ship fled into hyperspace, the Terran fleet regrouped. Cassian opened a channel to Captain Joran. "That was incredible," he said. "But where have you been? Why didn't you help us sooner?" There was a pause before Joran replied. "Earth has been preparing," he said. "We discovered something that changed everything." Cassian's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Before Joran could answer, another officer on the bridge spoke up. "Admiral, we're detecting something else." Cassian turned to the display. A massive ship was emerging from hyperspace, far larger than anything they had seen before. It wasn't Exinox, and it wasn't Federation. Its design was otherworldly. "That's Earth," Joran said, his voice calm. "Or what Earth has become." The officers on the bridge stared in shock as the colossal ship came into view. It wasn't just a warship, it was a city, a fortress, a planet in itself. Its surface glowed with unfamiliar energy, and strange symbols ran across its hull. Cassian felt a chill run down his spine. "What is that?" "It's what allowed us to win," Joran said. "We made contact with an ancient race, one far beyond anything the galaxy has ever known. They gave us the technology to survive, to rebuild, but it came with a price." Cassian's voice was barely a whisper. "What price?" Joran didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his tone was darker. "The galaxy isn't ready for what's coming. But Earth is. And now, we lead." The massive Terran ship began to move, its size dwarfing everything around it. Cassian realized too late that the Federation hadn't just gained an ally. They had gained a new master. And Earth? Earth had returned, but it was no longer the planet they remembered. The galaxy was at war. The Vardox, a brutal alien race, had swept across the stars, destroying planet after planet in their thirst for conquest. The Galactic Federation had fought valiantly, but they were losing. The Vardox were too powerful, too advanced. Hope was slipping away. Admiral Kara Wren stood on the bridge of the Solace, her flagship gazing out at the stars. The Federation's remaining fleets had gathered at the Helios system, preparing for what would likely be their final stand. She clenched her fists, frustrated by the inevitable defeat looming over them. "If only we had more time," she muttered. But time was a luxury they didn't have. The Vardox fleet was approaching fast, their massive warships already visible on the sensors. The Federation had no reinforcements, no secret weapons. This was it. Or so they thought. A sudden ripple echoed through space. The sensors on the Solace went wild, detecting an anomaly forming just beyond the battlefield. "Admiral," one of her officers called out, his voice tinged with panic, "we're detecting something strange. A disturbance in the fabric of space-time." Kara turned sharply. "Space-time? What does that mean?" Before the officer could answer, a massive energy vortex appeared, glowing with a brilliant golden light. Out of the vortex emerged ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their designs were sleek and elegant, their surfaces shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The Federation officers on the bridge stared in stunned silence. "What are those?" Kara whispered. A voice crackled through the comms, calm yet filled with authority. "This is Captain Elias Wren of the Kronos fleet. We're here to assist." Kara frowned, her mind racing. "Kronos fleet? I've never heard of you. What planet are you from?" There was a pause before the voice replied. "We're from Earth. But not the Earth you remember. We're from the future." The bridge erupted in whispers. Earth? That was impossible. Earth had been lost centuries ago, its people scattered or dead. And the future? That couldn't be real. Could it? "Admiral," Captain Elias continued, "we know this moment in history well. The Vardox invasion. The fall of the Federation. But this time, We've come to change the outcome. Kara's instincts told her to be cautious. If you're really from the future, why should we trust you? Because if we don't act now, everything you know will be destroyed, Elias said, his voice calm but urgent. Your fleet won't survive this battle. But with our help, we can turn the tide. Kara hesitated for a moment, then made her decision. All right. We'll fight together. Show us what you've got. The Kronos fleet moved into position with breathtaking precision. Their ships began to glow with energy, and strange devices emerged from their hulls. As the Vardok's fleet drew closer, the Kronos ships fired their weapons not lasers or missiles, but something far more advanced. Streams of pure temporal energy shot out, hitting the Vardok ships. The effects were instantaneous and shocking. One Vardok's warship was hit by a beam of temporal energy and began to decay. The ship aged hundreds, maybe thousands of years in seconds, its once mighty hull crumbling into dust. Another ship was hit and seemed to reverse in time, shrinking until it disappeared entirely. The Federation officers on the Solace watched in stunned silence. The Vardok's fleet, once unstoppable, was being dismantled by weapons they couldn't comprehend. How is this possible? Kara whispered. Elias's voice came through the comms again. Our technology manipulates time itself. The Vardoks are powerful, but they cannot fight what they don't understand. The battle raged on, but the Federation's victory was now within reach. The Kronos fleet's time-based weapons were unstoppable, and the Vardoks began to retreat. Cheers erupted on the Solace, but Kara's mind was still racing. As the last of the Vardok ships disappeared into hyperspace, Kara opened a channel to Elias. We owe you our lives, she said, but I need answers. What happened to Earth? How are you here? Elias sighed. Earth was never truly destroyed. When the Vardoks invaded centuries ago, we survived by going into hiding. We discovered the secrets of time travel and began to rebuild, waiting for the right moment to intervene. Why now? Kara asked. Why not help us sooner? Because time is fragile, Elias said. Interfering too early could have destroyed everything. But this moment was critical. Without our intervention, the Federation would fall, and the galaxy would be doomed. Now, there's hope. Kara wanted to believe him, but something about his words left her uneasy. And what happens now? Will you stay and help us rebuild? Elias hesitated. We can't stay. The timeline must remain balanced. Our presence here is already a risk. Before Kara could protest, the Kronos fleet began to move. The golden vortex reappeared, and one by one, the Terran ships disappeared into the light. Within moments, they were gone. The bridge of the Solace was silent, the officers still processing what had just happened. Kara stared at the empty space where the Kronos fleet had been, her mind filled with questions. They had won the battle, but the mystery of Earth's future lingered. Who were the Terrans, really? And what price had they paid to master time itself? As the Solace prepared to return to base, Kara couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end of the story. The galaxy had been saved, but at what cost? The galaxy was burning. The Zixan Armada, a relentless alien force, had conquered planet after planet, leaving only destruction in their wake. The Galactic Federation had tried to fight, but their fleets were no match for the Zixan's advanced technology and brutal tactics. Hope was fading fast. Earth, the birthplace of humanity, was the last line of defense. But Earth wasn't the mighty power it once was. Decades of isolation had left it vulnerable, forgotten by the larger galaxy. When the Federation called for help, Earth had sent only a single reply: we will stand. Admiral Cale Drayton, commander of the Federation's scattered fleets, wasn't sure what to make of the message. Earth hadn't been heard from in years, and now, in the galaxy's darkest hour, they claimed they were ready to fight. But with what? Rusty ships and outdated weapons wouldn't stop the Zixan. Still, Cale had no choice. He had to trust Earth's promise. Now he stood on the bridge of his battered flagship, the Stellar Vow, watching the Zixan Armada approach the Sol system. Thousands of enemy ships blotted out the stars, their massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. The Federation's remaining forces were hopelessly outnumbered. "We can't win this," one of his officers said, his voice trembling. "Even with Earth, it's not enough." Kale didn't respond. He couldn't argue with the truth. "Admiral," another officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." "Put it through," Kale ordered. The voice that came through was calm and steady. "This is Commander Elena Frost of the Earth Defense Initiative. Welcome to the Sol System, Admiral. We've been expecting you." Kale frowned. "Commander Frost, the Zixan fleet is nearly here. What forces can you muster?" There was a brief pause before she answered. "Enough." Kale's frustration flared. "Enough? We need details, Commander. What exactly are we fighting with?" "You'll see soon," Frost said, her tone unwavering. "But I suggest you pull your ships back to Earth's orbit. Let us handle the first wave." "Handle the first wave?" Kale repeated, stunned. "Earth can't fight this alone." "We're not fighting alone," Frost interrupted. "We've been preparing for this moment for decades. Trust us, Admiral." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Kyle and his crew in uneasy silence. "Orders, sir?" one officer asked. Kyle hesitated, then sighed. "Pull back to Earth's orbit. Let's see what they're planning." As the Federation fleet retreated, the Zixan ships closed in. Their formation was perfect, a wall of destruction that no force in the galaxy had been able to stop. Kale's heart sank as he watched them approach. Whatever Earth had up its sleeve, it wouldn't be enough. It couldn't be. Then, the dark side of Earth's moon lit up. A massive structure began to rise from the lunar surface. It was a ship larger than anything Kyle had ever seen. Its hull was black and gleaming, covered in strange, glowing symbols. As it emerged, smaller ships poured out from hidden hangars, each one sleek and bristling with weapons unlike anything in the Federation's arsenal. "What is that?" one of Kale's officers whispered. The massive ship activated its engines, and its deep, resonating hum filled the comms. Commander Frost's voice returned, calm as ever. "Admiral, meet the Erebus, Earth's flagship. And our last hope." The Zixan ships opened fire, their weapons blazing toward the Erebus. But the massive ship activated a shimmering energy field, absorbing the attacks like they were nothing. Then, the Erebus retaliated. Its main cannon fired a beam of white-hot energy that sliced through the Zixan ships like a knife through paper. Entire squadrons were obliterated in seconds. Kale's jaw dropped as the battle unfolded. Earth's ships moved with surgical precision, their advanced weapons cutting down the Zixan forces. The Erebus led the charge, its massive cannons tearing apart the enemy's dreadnoughts. "How did they build this?" one officer asked, his voice filled with awe. How did Earth do this? Kale didn't have an answer. All he could do was watch as Earth's forces turned the tide of the battle. But the Zixan weren't finished. Their flagship, a massive fortress of a ship, advanced toward Earth, its weapons charging for a devastating strike. The Erebus moved to intercept, but even its shields couldn't withstand the full force of the Zixan flagship's attack. Frost's voice came through the comms again. "Admiral, we need your fleet to cover us. This is the final push." Kale didn't hesitate. "All ships, move in. Protect the Erebus at all costs." The Federation's battered ships surged forward, joining Earth's forces in a desperate final stand. The Zixan flagship fired again, its beams tearing through the Federation's smaller ships. But they held the line, buying the Erebus enough time to charge its main weapon. The massive Earth ship fired its cannon one last time, the energy beam hitting the Zixan flagship square in the center. For a moment, it seemed like nothing had happened. Then, the Zixan ship began to collapse, its hull imploding as the energy tore apart from within. Cheers erupted across the Federation's comms. The Zixan armada was broken. The battle was won. As the dust settled, Kale opened a channel to Commander Frost. "You saved us," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "But how? How did Earth build all this?" Frost's reply was calm, almost cryptic. "When the galaxy turned its back on us, we learned to survive on our own. We became what we needed to be. And now we're here to stay. Kyle couldn't help but wonder what that meant for the future. Earth had saved the galaxy, but they had also become something new, something powerful. The question was, what would they do next? For now, though, the galaxy had been given a second chance, and Earth had made its stand.